Green Lantern War Journal number 3, written by Philip Kennedy Johnson with art by Montos, Adriana Lucas, and Dave Sharp. And in this whole thing, if you remember from the previous issue, we had one of the new Green Lanterns was infected by the Radiant Queen from another universe who had come here looking to kill John Stewart because she wasn't able to kill John Stewart in her universe. So she's just like, let me find some bitch-ass John Stewarts to kill and make myself feel better about myself. And in the process of that, this multiversal creation who seems to have like Green Lantern powers, but a different spectrum, a different way the power works. A ring along those lines is infecting people with the radiant dead energy that she gives off. She infected this Green Lantern, Varos, who is now a big threat to John Stewart. And then in the previous issue, infected John Stewart with this radiant dead energy, which will make him zombie-like like Varos. So now it's slowly going through him. And in this issue, it's like, all right, we have him infected. It's time for John Stewart to fight. The big problem is the more he uses his power, which is the inner power of the mortal guardian power, the new god power that he got from the god Storm previously, like instead of a ring. I'm just trying to say instead of a ring, the power that he uses, because people associate, it's Green Lantern book John Stewart. So if you haven't been following along, he has the power within him all along. That's what we're playing right now. The more he uses that power, the more the infection is going to spread to turn him into one of the Radiant Dead. And as they point out in this issue, it looks like he's becoming a pseudo construct. So it almost feels like, the way that the Radiant Queen is working, it feels like what Lar Fleas does with his core of the Orange Lantern core, where if you kill somebody, you just make a construct of them and they're a part of the core now. So it feels
I wish the art played that better. I didn't get that from the art. It actually,
he looked like he had octopus suckers on his arm.
Yeah.
That's about it.
And that's the play, even when you have, the other lantern that comes down and he's already there and he's rotting and you're getting this play of even that guy. I'm like, I didn't get oh man, he looks like a construct. No, just looks like a zombie. So I thought that was a play.
Even when Varos and him are fighting atop the train, and he's then saved by this other multiversal lantern called Lantern Shepherd, who has traveled to this universe to try to get this John Stewart and save their day before, he did in his universe. John's already infected, but Shepherd saves the day. They end up going to Steelworks to help John out. But when John is, knocked out during this time, he's having visions. And in that, you see this weird radiant dead construct, like octopus tentacles coming down out of the sky, tearing apart the world. So, is that the key that we're supposed to get? Because obviously this is the infection spreading within him. His subconscious is telling him this. But is this what we're supposed to see the representation of with the idea of him becoming a construct?
It's just a weird deal because I think that he actually says that Varon was kind of like I thought him and he was like a construct, but he wasn't. He just looked like a zombie.
He's like a zombie, yeah.
Well, and when you look at points, you do have the color popping off, but it didn't feel like that. Felt more like the power was glowing or burning on him than the contract. But I didn't mind. But I just want to point out, I went through this issue, and here people might laugh at this idea. I get done and I go, you know what? I didn't hate that art like I used to, and I ended up realizing I didn't love it, but I actually didn't mind it. And I don't like Montos's art. I didn't like the art in this book was one of the things. But at the end, almost like I had to stop myself. Wait a minute, Jimmy boy. You're a hater. You didn't like this, but I actually was I didn't mind it, but I did.
I thought this look was good.
End up, and I did end up though at the one point, he did construct. I went back. I'm like, ew, looked like a zombie. The one play
I sat back and said, okay, if you say so.
Yeah, the one thing about this, I think that this book benefits a bit with a little more of the green construct. It's hard to get that, especially with this Radiant deal going on. Which actually, in this, I'm like, is this going to be that vision that that universe is an ultraviolet spectrum that then it does look like that, Eric, but and also people were talking about who the Radiant Queen might be. The idea that she's got a real hard on for you, like the idea, and I even said at the beginning that it might be like Katma Tui. We'll find out. That's kind of a neat play. It's one of those two, I would say, but.
You have the Radiant Queen, and there's even the idea where we have this thing that we don't fully understand from John's dream world that just so happened to be an actual universe in the multiverse, where John Stewart being in that universe pretty much the last guardian. He has given up doing things because he's given power to the rest of the court to do things, but the Radiant Dead have sent their big baby prince down to try to destroy everything, kill John, and John kills big baby Radiant Dead, and the Queen Radiant Dead, she's like, you done killed my baby, I'm going to kill you, John. So he said, not on my watch, and then it took her out. Before he could completely take her out, he's like, well, fuck this, I'm going to go to another universe and take that asshole John Stewart out. Like, oh! And then, Lantern Shepherd has to follow along because, we have to stop the universe from being killed, or multiple universes being killed by the Radiant Dead because John Stewart didn't finish his job. But with that, it's like, Shepherd is now letting John Stewart now stuff that we know if we've read the backups or the Dark Crisis tie into Green Lantern, or if we've like just been following close to what's going on currently in the series, where then it's like Shepard's letting him know, and it's going to take him to the moment in between moments of using the ring and the emotional spectrum of the will, where we have the dead spirit of the Kyle Rayner of that universe, who's going to continue to explain things to John. And essentially, though, I say continue to explain, not really, because what he's saying is, hey, you done quit the Green Lantern Corps, and that's not cool because our John Stewart would never do this. So we got to get you more like our John Stewart so you can save the world because you're the only guy that can do it. So get on board now.
But it does feel like there's a little bit of like recap. And this is where I thought by the end, like you said, it's not necessarily that, but you're I think that this issue, you might even have Philip Kennedy Johnson, like he would go on Twitter and say, listen, everybody, my book might have been confusing as shit to a lot of people. Check this one out. I'll explain a couple things quickly. I'll get it almost feels like the recap is trying to convince me that I did know what was going on before. You know what I mean? Because it is very dumbed down, but I didn't mind that. I actually thought, okay, because now I realize through all that jumble, and some people are going to be, what is he talking about? I understand. I didn't. I'll admit it. Like we admit when we're dummies, and I felt like a dummy. So when you get to this, I actually felt like this was that issue of, okay, I kind of know what happened before, but I know enough now. I realize I know enough. Now we go forward, and I fully understand because it is basic. I mean, but this is almost like the play of what people might have said at the beginning of that Jeremy Adams Green Lantern, the Hal book. Oh, it's so bad. I kind of need basic in here because there are some wacky concepts, but it's able to go. And the idea of a John Stewart who would, want to save everybody. But obviously, if he does, you even have in this earlier, he almost has to make a decision on, do I save the many or the few? And the few is his mom, and that comes in again. And he even has that promise. I told her I wouldn't leave, and she's got dementia. Weird situation. And I think that he's afraid that if he leaves and comes back, she's not going to know who he is then because she's losing it, and he doesn't want to miss out on that. And
or she might die in the interim because she was also hurt during the attack on the train that Varen caused. But when you have this going on, I never had until this issue the idea that John Stewart quit the Green, maybe I missed it. It's a possibility always, but never had the idea that John Stewart quit the Green Lantern Corps to be with his mother. That's why he gave him. I got the idea that the United Federation of Planets came in and tried to change things, and he's like, "Look, I don't want any parts of this. I'm leaving now." And he had the power in him all along, so it didn't matter.
It might have been column A and column B, but
now in this whole pursuit of I made a promise that I'd quit. It's all about the mother, but even with that, I had a weird time trying to work this through because John Stewart being John Stewart, the idea of stepping back and quitting because, as Kyle Rayner of the Mind wants to tell him, there's no Superman, there's no Wonder Woman that'll step up to take care of this father because it has to be you. I never got the idea that John Stewart would just be like, okay, I'm not going to fight this fight. Somebody else is going to do it because I made a promise to my mom. The promise feels secondary. I'm going to do this to protect the people that I love because I'm John Stewart. That's what I do as John Stewart. And also, I have the power of a moral guardian. As far as I'm concerned right now, John Stewart has more power than any other Green Lantern out there or any other Lantern. He should be one to get involved in this, even if he's not, as the other Lanterns from the other universe say, they're John Stewart yet, because he doesn't know how to use the power. He's not that guy, but they want him to step up to do it.
I think that the thing with his mom, I think that Philip Kennedy Johnson, in my mind, he was trying to be a little subtle with it, because if you remember, there's even him saying he promised his mom because she doesn't know that he quit. I mean, she keeps saying, you're going to go back. No, I'm not, Mom. And I think that's one of the things where in this issue, maybe, and it kind of dawned on me, because even then we kind of got, and she's kind of losing it. Oh, where's your sister? His sister's been dead. He makes a construct, that sort of thing.
She's been dead for 30 years.
But he's never been on Front Street fully saying, my mom has full dementia, because who would he have to talk to about that until here? And he does end up saying then, my mom is sick. She's got dementia. And then it kind of dawned on me at that idea that I think that he quit the Corps. Again, this is kind of a subtle deal, maybe in my head. He quit the Corps because he needs somebody has to take care of his mom. He doesn't want her to be in a home.
I just wish I would have felt like I was on Front Street about this the whole time, because up until now, it felt like it was the only reason was United Federation of Planets.
And that's because that happened with Hal as well. Well, it happened with Hal. What I think, though, is because he's trying to almost not admit to his mom. He says she's the hero. She ended up being the one who stepped up and fought. Now she can't remember things. She's, and it's going to die soon. And
so she was his hero growing up, and her strength, fueled him to become the man he is. It's great.
I think the play is there was never going to be a time in this book where Jon could say to somebody, listen, I quit because of this. The idea that he didn't say anything like because his mom, he doesn't want his mom to feel bad that, hey, I had to quit my job and do all this because you're getting sick and you're losing it.
I agree.
So I think that that's the play. I think there was never a point where you really got any idea, and then it kind of comes in here, which I didn't mind.
And the thing is, maybe I am remembering it wrong, because there was that point where he was talking to Guy Gardner, via construct and stuff like that, where maybe there were subtle hits that maybe I just didn't pick up on, but for some reason in my mind, it was all about the United Federation of Planets. But just the idea, even with the promise of like, I got to take care of my mom because I promised I wouldn't do this anymore, is still Jon Stewart. And like, he has to, for some reason, this threat that he's actually even taking over his body at this point, he has to be talked into helping. Like, you're dying, Jon. You have no other course of action at this point in time.
It's a weird play too, because I even got that idea because of the, the mosaic stuff and the Jeffrey Thorne, like, when that was done, I don't know why I thought like, ooh, he's grown out of that. Like he's almost evolved past those assholes. And then we also had, and I took it as that of like, oh my God, he's like Yoda going off the Dagobah.
He understands things way more than anybody else should in the Green Lantern Corps of how the power works.
I will use this bit to also talk just briefly about the idea that why do we have to keep, like we say about the whole, hey, Jeffrey Thorne, we'll let that sit in the corner. And no. Because this whole damn shit about this United Planets and stuff, I just wish we didn't have that. I wish that we didn't have to sit there and like, well, Hal quit, but he has
to blame Bendis.
Yeah, well, that too, but I just want the core. I just want all of them. But I also don't need you to keep fudging shit about, well, there's Hal. He can't have a ring, but he made one out of a willpower as he got shot by Manhunter Tech. Like, you got to fudge everything to get things going. Just get
Still
to it.
Still kind of works for me, though. With our journey of Hal Jordan.
But we don't know what it means because we don't know what the thing's going on. I'm not saying that. I'm saying we don't even know what the United planets are doing. We have no idea what's going on in the background of it.
That Durlin president.
Crooked. But again, that's where eventually, and we're joking, eventually we're going to have to deal with some wacky. That's the shit that's waiting. Like that shit that might end up being a brick wall with a lot of people when we get to that.
The Justice League, like, because we have this big Amanda Waller thing coming down with. It's going to be the darkest you've ever seen before the dawn, it feels like, for whatever's coming in DC Comics down the line. But once we get past that bit, though, you talk about the idea, like, I was thinking even just the Justice League, but you think of every hero on Earth right now, and maybe even the Green Lantern Corps going against the entire United Federation of Planets, and like, we got to consider, like, who's pushing the media of, the universe, who's the good guys, who's the bad guys. That could be a really cool, huge event that could, like, shatter everything that and just make things so goddamn cool.
And that could shatter a lot of stuff that happens in the future. I mean, the Legion of Substitute Heroes might be a little upset about if they come, but it does affect the Legion. You might have them come through. That sounds really neat. That sounds pretty cool, but, we'll see. We'll see.
I gotta preserve the timeline.
It's bad when you end up where you get a dead Kyle Rayner from another deal, and I'm like, oh shit, that's
from another
cool.
Universe, yeah.
I get so excited.
A blind, dead Kyle Rayner from another universe.
Like, all right. He looks like Gojo, he does. But you end up
feels
all
like,
this
the
going
tangent
down.
Green Lantern a bit.
Yeah, he does. He does. And when I was saying about the art, I do think now that I'm looking through this, I do think that it is the colors, and this, because the colors are really muted in this book, normally a little dark and gritty, which kind of sucks for a Green Lantern book. But when you get into that other space and it's all green, I'm like, all right, you're pretty cool.
Almost like the Emerald Space.
It really felt like the Emerald Space / a Phantom Zone, like we've talked about in Injustice, when they take Superboy because he's going to die and they have to take him to the Phantom Zone. They're like, let's get you in here. You're not going to get infected. But you're right, though. The whole play of it, it's a weird deal. Some people have told me they like this because it shows how much of a hero Jon is. But you also are showing that he isn't. So which is it? I mean, he loves his mom. He's going to have to, do these things. And it's a cool little tug of war going on. But like you said, you want Jon to just like, I'm stepping up.
But it feels like an unnecessary tug of war. Like, I understand you're going to have your, like, your problems, the idea of leaving your sick mother right now who's been injured in a fight that somebody came after you about. So you have this trepidation, reservation about doing this whole thing. But you're also this, mortal guardian lantern. And this thing has actually attacked you already, and you're infected, and it's going to destroy the world. And you have confirmation. You're the only one that can stop it. There shouldn't be this tug of war at this point in time. Like, you fucking saddle up at that point because you're goddamn Jon Stewart.
there's a funny thing here where I saw some people and they complain about Jon Stewart because Jon Stewart, you get a book, you're usually going to get one of two things.
Architect.
Marine, right?
Yeah.
So you have Philip Kennedy Johnson, who is a military guy. Not once, I don't think this, normally, 99% is, I don't leave a man behind. Like, you would go heavy.
Oh, you are seeing a softer side of Jon Stewart, and I dig it, because you're not relying on the tropes. Right now, we're adding another thing, Mama's Boy.
Yeah, Mama's Boy, but again,
and I like
it's one of those play. And you know why I'm here for it? Because obviously, he always loved his mom. But his mom's at the end of her life, and she's sick. She's got dementia. She may not remember things, tomorrow. That makes you more of a mama's boy at the end. I mean, you're going to want to be there. So I understand. But I do give credit, though. I saw some people like, oh, man, he's a Marine. But there's more to him than that. And I do think that it's such a crazy deal that a lot of people...
Even the last issue, we explored him working for Steelworks, even though he's an architect and not an engineer.
Yeah, exactly. Do you end up having Philip Kennedy Johnson, when they announced the book, most people that I saw are like, that's cool. He's a military. I think they even said it in the announcement.
It's fucking called War Journal.
Yeah, and so you have that, but I give him a lot of props now that I'm thinking about it. That, yeah, he doesn't, because he's in a different mode now. And it also plays out that deal where even we had at points like the guy who comes back from war and comes out of Hal's dealing with that as well. Of, having the idea of, what do I do now? I mean, everything's all slow now and it's not as exciting, but Jon had found the deal and he's taking care of his mother.
Well, Jon's... Okay,
you go. No, you go. You keep going.
No, mine's stupid.
I'll talk about it too. Well, the only thing I was going to say, obviously, something stupid as well. When you get at the end where they're like, okay, I'm like, are they going to go help Beast Boy plant some fucking trees here? I'm like, what is going on with this nonsense?
Well, that's the worst part, because you have this whole like Jon-centric thing of him making this hard choice about what he has to do and what he has to be in order to overcome the situation at hand, something he's never faced before. That's something nobody in this universe has ever faced before. And then you jump to a few pages of some people in the Amazon rainforest trying to go after some loggers who already disappeared because Varen, the Radiant Dead Lantern, has turned them and a bunch of animals in the rainforest into the Radiant Dead already. I'm like, that's not the strongest setting I would have hoped for. But what I was going to say that was stupid was, now that Jon's on board, we better start the next issue with his ass putting on a fucking bandana and getting ready to go to war. And putting on a headband Rambo style.
I did think, and you have a deal, and I think you get that beat. Beep, beep. I'm glad that what we didn't get at one
mother's
point,
heart monitor, yeah.
Usually we would have the EKG. You show the EKG, I always predict dead. The minute that you end up having somebody that's hurt in a comic and you see, okay, oh man, they're showing the EKG. There's only one reason, because you're going to flatline that bitch by the end. And I actually, in my dumb deal, I thought that he was going to be like, because he wants to say goodbye, because he, and not goodbye forever. He hopes that he's going to be back. But listen, I lied to you. And it's such a...
Explain why he had to break his promise.
He's trying to explain to her, but she seems in a coma. Even if she wasn't, she may not have understood all of it anyway. But he really doesn't want to leave. I mean, it's almost like that play of like, okay, Mom, if you want me, if you do, like, twist it around, like, if you want me to go, give me a sign. Ooh, she didn't give me a sign. I'm staying. But he's like really like trying to like not leave. But at the end, he's like, okay, I'll get back. I'm not going to let anybody hurt. He actually does come to the realization of, I have to do this because I don't want people to die. And you would have done it. You're my hero. Me and, my sister looked up to you. All that stuff. It was really good. At the end, I swear to God, we were going to get that trope where he walks out, and then all of a sudden the mom opens, yes, you did good, young man. Like, she was punking him the whole time. Or I thought she'd die. One of the two, Eric. She did neither. She's living, Eric. She's a fighter. So we'll see how it goes. I do feel bad, though. That whole play of making the construct sister really does come into play, even when you see that little bit at the end. But then you get that, the Radiant
Dead in the Amazon jungle. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, they got an owl. I'm like,
there's a snake.
I get it. Yeah, there's
a jaguar.
What is that other thing there? Is that like a Wolverine or something?
I don't know. I'm not on the page.
At least Philip Kennedy Johnson did a little more work than the Clone Rats when we were like letting all those fucking animals out into the Amazon in that Wonder Woman book.
Oh, yeah.
This at least seems to make sense to me. That looks like a big fucking snake, though. Jesus Christ. Look at the thing. It's spitting out all its venom.
This is why we have the movies Anaconda.
wait. Yeah. What if
scary down there?
The best thing, just to ask you what you would think, I forget what book it was. Me and Zach doing a book at Marvel, and there was the mention of somebody being bitten by that poisonous anaconda. I'm like, I don't think they're poisonous. I think they're more of the constrictors.
No, that's the thing, is you got to understand.
They are, Eric. I was right.
This is the poisonous kind, though, unlike the other non-poisonous kind.
That shit there is crazy. That thing looks like a viper.
Like, the only thing I know about snakes is to stay away from them.
Yeah, that's like me in Detroit. Best thing to do is get the fuck out of Detroit, right, Eric? But with that, what would you give this?
Thing is, like, I like this series a lot and had a gigantic, profound revelation about why I enjoyed it in the previous issue when I went back and reread everything and got a chance to talk about it. This issue coming into it, I couldn't wait for it, but I found this to be a down issue because it dragged its feet in what it wanted to do, and it felt weird for how long it wanted to drag its feet for the option that John had. He didn't have any options. We spent an entire issue dealing with that, and it felt weird and out of place, especially to go to Amazon Jungle for a few pages. Felt like we just had to have a weird cool down issue. And like you said, the idea maybe that he felt like he needed to explain things more for people who didn't read those backups previously. I don't know. But for me, it just kind of came off as a slog and felt weird and out of place. And that's something that, I would see John Stewart doing for how we've seen him previously, or just how you know John Stewart. So I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10 ultimately, because I did enjoy the art and I like this series. But I might even go down to a 5.8 because it's not a strong issue for me.
I like it so much more than you, because I like the stuff with John Stewart, and it's like kind of flip-flop with the deal. But I think, again, you want more of the Green Lantern stuff. I actually like to settle down because I wasn't quite on board. I'm still not hooked yet, but I did like the John Stewart more background stuff. Yeah, and yeah, but that's a problem. Not a lot of people have that background, as well. So what do? But I do like that it's called War Games next, so maybe we will get a lot of 80s shit going on. Be pretty cool.
A lot of 80s shit? Joshua?
Yeah, Joshua. Oh my God, he's still playing the game, Eric, is what they're going to yell. With that, what game are you playing? If you're the Radiant Dead, you're there and I got to gather an army, do you end up going to the sparsely populated jungles to get a couple animals and some tribal guys, or do you just head to New York City and get 50 million people?
I don't know what a lantern like the Radiant Dead Lantern of Varan can do, and I don't know what the Radiant Dead's plans are ultimately. I don't know the mindset of the Lantern he used to be, or what his mindset is now as a Radiant Dead, or how the power works outside of the Radiant Queen.
Well, you're saying that the idea of I don't know how the ring works, but he's doing something in the jungle where he is doing it to the. I think he could do it to other.
Well, maybe now that Lantern Shepherd is here,
military base,
and whooped his ass a little bit, he's trying to lay low a little bit.
Maybe he is. Maybe he's and again, you do the funny play is if you want to take it to the basic level. When Shepherd shows up, he does use a bunch of crazy animal constructs and birds to save the day. Maybe the Radiant Dead is fuck this. I'm going to go get my own animals, but I'm going to get the owls and I'm going to get the eagles and the pythons. All right, you did.
And the Jaguars.
And we'll get the Jaguars. And I don't know, when I see that whole thing, I don't know why it doesn't scare me that much. It should. I mean, any of those people just rip me apart. But for some reason, I'm
they ain't ripping you apart. They infected you. You're a zombie too.
Well, they are infecting me. And
Jim, you're turning into a construct.
I love the idea. Oh my God, you're now a Radiant Dead construct, sick deal. But please make sure that loincloth doesn't fall off, because you might embarrass yourself and some other people. That's
shame stays forever.
It does stay forever. And I don't know. I think maybe we'd be more shamed at our things when we saw it. But
my things.
Your thingies. I'm a 7 out of 10. I like the John Stewart stuff. And
that's cool.
Again, once we started talking, and we didn't go to the trope of, I'm a military guy and we don't leave anybody behind. I'm like, you're doing more than just the tropes and the cliches. And
which I appreciate as well.
For the last bit, you're not in the mode of needing to maybe catch up or have something. I am. And this kind of did it. And I'm looking forward to next issue, War Games, because I want to see Joshua. But I also want to have this play where me and you now come together. This is like that transition issue. It's a little Brit. Right? I'm here.
Yeah, I dig it.
I was afraid to cross the bridge. You were holding my hand midway. But then all of a sudden, I started running.
So shaky.
I'm running. The bridge then collapses and I die.
Yeah, don't run,
now
please.
I'm the Radiant Dead. I'm like the third guy back there. I'm actually the guy that's just crouched over. Or maybe the guy
standing up.
You see that guy in the very back is that's me. Or maybe that weird thing that I swear is a Wolverine. I'm not sure. I don't. Or Wolverines, and I don't even know where did they say they were. I don't even remember where they said, they're in the rainforest. It is the best where you just rainforest and you could just throw anything in there. And then if somebody says they
Dinosaurs.
don't live in the rainforest, right? And I go, don't they? Because you just like that. Oh, that'd be great. I always think of piranhas in the Amazon. And that's
why wouldn't you?
I'm still in that mode that I really thought at one point because they told us those killer bees and then piranhas, they're all coming to get me.
Just saying that. I'm still waiting for the murder hornets.
Well, yeah, seriously. I ended up where at points, like I thought the toilet was a doorbell to hell. I also really thought that piranhas were going to come up and bite my junk, my thingies. Uh-huh. I was really worried.
You got to watch out. It's a scary world.
I was really, really worried about that. And since I was a little kid, Eric, you know that I do all my business sitting down, which then ends up really upset because then I can't, and then I got to look. I'm like always on the lookout. Like, oh my, like, is there something in there? It always scares me. And then I start thinking about it, and then I get more, I'm a wacky guy.
You are all weirdos.
Weird science is the revolution. Weird science is the revolution.